quote it that way.
Not creating the need to control, but trusting in the completeness of
Okay.
God's work.
Right, and this brings up something that Heike and I were talking about yesterday.
Thanks.
Is sometimes it's really hard for us to trust God, and the question becomes, so the laughing, what we're really laughing at is we're laughing at the things that the enemy is trying to bring against us.
Okay.
Right, we're laughing at his attempt to try
Like,
and
ha,
kill
it's not
us.
working.
Well, I always think of it like this, like, oh, you are, hey, hold on one second, hey, Daddy. Have you met my dad? He's, yeah, on the playground, he threw things at me. Yeah. Have a good day. I gotta be back here with my daddy. That's how I always say. I'm always like, he'll say, we'll do something. I'm like, hold that thought. Daddy, he's being mean to me again. Oh, you got that?
That's awesome. I love that.
So, but why don't we trust him? Why don't we trust God to do those things? Because when I don't know about you, but so I have like a whole cartoon, like a whole animated thing in my head. Like I animate my whole life. So it's a big cartoon up there. So like, like I go to the altar and I like leave it there. And I start walking out, and right before the door closes, I become like the rubber woman with my arm, and I like, and I leave and I'm gone before the door closes.
And you get it back.
I almost made it out the door.
Elastigirl?
Yes, I become like Elastic Girl, and I reach
Yeah,
back.
like you reach back and you get that care and concern,
And we do that because, but that is a lack of trust.
Yes, it is.
It really is a lack of trust, and like, where does that come from in our life? Because if we're going to trust God, and we're going to laugh at the future, that means we got to trust Him with our future. And when we take it back from Him, what we're really saying is like, God, you just. So this is me. This is what I used to do. I used to be like, again, a whole cartoon in my head. Be like, God, you just, I'm gonna drive. You look at the map, and I'd be driving, and Jesus would say, "We got Jesus, shh." Just look at the map. I got a whole plan. And he'd be like, but we gotta shh. Just look at the map. Now I'm like, hey, I like the trees. They're so pretty. I just drive where we want to. So there's like a river there, and there's trees, and there's people out there too. Oh, you can go wherever. No, not that exit. Okay, we just go. You see the trees? Like, I don't even care anymore. Like, I'm just sitting in the passenger seat. Because I don't want to take it back from him.
He's driving.
He's driving. Like, and not take it back. But where does that untrust come from? Because we have to deal with that in our life. We can't, like, try and ignore it and say, well, I'm just going to trust God. But I don't have trust. I don't have trust because who hurt me? My mom, my dad, a friend, my husband. Who hurt me? Who hurt me that suddenly pulled that rug out from underneath me that made me think my whole world was untrustworthy. And now I don't trust God. Maybe I never did. Maybe I only trust Him with little things. Maybe I even test Him. Maybe I'll trust you with this, but not with that. Prove yourself in that. Like, I think we all do that on some level.
Yeah.
Whether we consciously say, well, I'm trusting God. I think we could probably, if we really looked at it, we probably could find some areas that we don't trust Him in.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't trust Him with this, or we don't trust Him with that, right? Whatever it is. And I think sometimes that comes, we have to deal with that. I think sometimes we have to deal with that because it will keep coming up for us and our level of trust for Him. A lot of times people project to God, like, I met a woman one time, a long time ago. It was in my 20s, and she was in a Bible study, and she said, I don't like to think of God as a father because my father was terrible to me. And at that moment, I had never thought about that.
Yeah.
I had never projected either one of my parents onto God. Like, I thought of Him as His own self. So it was a new concept for me to think that people thought of Him that way. And because I was just willing to accept that He was who He is, right? on some level. Although I didn't entirely trust him because I was still doing my own thing, right? And I'm still like, what is it? Elastic girl. I become elastic girl, and go back and get my thing that I left at the altar as quickly as I possibly could, right? You know, I think that I think for us to be able to laugh at the future, we have to trust him. We have to, like, and as hard as that can be, I know there's been situations in my life where it's been extremely hard for me to trust, and I think that, you know, in counseling I see it a lot. People don't trust other people, for a variety of reasons. It makes it very difficult for them to trust God. The younger generation has an extremely difficult problem with it. They're looking for anything to hold on to, because the adult, 9 times out of 10, the adults in their lives have so created situations that are so dysfunctional for them that they can't trust anything that anybody in authority says. So that becomes an issue, right? So how do we go back and really, like, embrace the idea that God's got our back, 100%.
I really believe that when we are led by the Spirit of God, when we hear His voice and obey Him, that He will indeed protect us, because He'll, like, help us sidestep, you know, the danger, you know.
Hey, but what about when He doesn't? Like, so this is funny, not funny, but interesting. Like, one time I said to Dan, I'm like, Dan, where do people get this idea that once they become a Christian, they are going to, like, 100% be like in La La Land? Because, like, that's annoying to me, because when I found out that wasn't true, I was a little angry. Right?
Well, I'll give an example. Like, one time I was sleeping and I had a dream and it woke me up, and
Sure.
I walked across the carpet and there was, I think it was like a scorpion, the one that has the, walking across my brown carpet. But the Lord showed it to me. I mean, it was in the middle of the night, you know. I mean, so I woke up so I could kill it.
Mm-hmm.
I was amazed at God, you know. He woke me up just so I could kill that scorpion, so it wouldn't come into my home, you know. So that just really blessed me, you know, that He did that for me.
I think for me is when I realized that Jesus Himself was betrayed. That's when you realize, I think that because that's when I realized when somebody betrayed me, Jesus felt the same way that I felt in that moment. Because He had people that loved Him and said, that loved Him, denied Him, and put Him on the cross. Then you know exactly that your Father felt the same way you felt. And I think for women, we can be betrayed with different things.
Yeah.
Right? Husbands can be friends, you know, that say you love your. But I mean, that is when it hit in my heart that He felt the same way that I felt in that situation. So I can trust Him because He felt it, and that's why Jesus came to the earth, because He wanted to be like us, to feel like us, what we felt, you know.
Yeah.
And that betrayal, and then you can say, that's the only God, if you compare other, that really came to earth and felt it. He knows what it feels like betrayed. When He was lied to, He felt all this. And then you can say, I trust you, God, because you know what I went through. It's just like when you were in a situation, you counsel somebody, you talk to somebody, and you've already been through that situation. You can counsel them better because you've been through it.
Right.
Right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, for example, I am from Germany in America, so I can relate to Germans that came from America because of their culture, what they feel when they come over here, you know, the food is different, there's simple things. But I know what their situation is because I've been there.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the same way Jesus is. He's in a higher spiritual level. Is he's been betrayed. We don't see him physically, but we know what he went through Scripture, and therefore we can trust him because he came out on the other side.
Right.
And so
Yeah, like-
we will be also.
I'll tell you, to segue off of that, I mean, about a year ago, the Lord showed me that my husband had the narcissistic personality disorder because of his adverse childhood experiences. So he developed that personality. And then the Lord was showing me that the devil was the same way.
Yeah.
And I mean, Lucifer. And so, and then the very, very, very beginning, I mean, there was Michael, Lucifer, and Gabriel, the three archangels in heaven. And Lucifer led the praise and worship. You know, he had musical instruments in him. He was built with jewels, so he would reflect the glory of God. So Lucifer was in heaven leading the praise and worship. He had a huge choir. One, you know, all the angels listened to him. So when he started getting puffed up in the pride, he started lying to the angels. The angels believed him, and it became just so terrible that by the time, I guess God was merciful and probably waited for a while, but when 1/3 of the angels were deceived, God's like, that is it. You are out of here. And so he had to get Michael to kick Lucifer out of heaven. So Lucifer was, you know, sent to earth.
Yeah.
1/3 of the angels went with him. Can you imagine the devastating heartbreak of heaven? You know, I mean, they're probably rejoicing that he was out of there, that he was gone. At the same time, they were grieving over the fact that this guy never changed, you know, Lucifer, you know,
Right.
totally.
And
So it was probably like complex grief, you know, like, I'm glad he's gone, but man, I'm sad he never changed. So the Lord was showing me that is exactly what he experienced. He understands what I'm going through. And so I asked the Lord, okay, how did you deal with it? And he says, well, after that, I started creating. He created Adam and Eve, and he created the heavens and the earth, and, you know, sun, the moon, stars. You know, he created everything. He made it all new. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
It is.
It is.
So that's, I mean, the same thing you were talking about. So I think creating is a therapeutic way, you know, just dealing with heartbreak, you know.
Absolutely, creating something.
And we talked about that actually yesterday. We were thinking, because if you think about Adam and Eve, who can create? Who creates life?
God.
Well,
Yeah, but she's talking about here on earth, who creates life.
who creates life?
Eve creates life.
Which is us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Women.
So the women are under attack because we create life. We create the next generation.
Right.
And we're not doing it by ourselves. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we physically bear the child, we give birth, you know, whereas the children, and what is the easiest target is the woman that creates.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think it's that learning that trust when there is when there's some contradiction, right? Like Proverbs is all about, you do this will happen, you do that will happen. We'll all live in peace and happiness. Ecclesiastes says, wait a minute.
This is reality.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes says, okay, you might do that, but this happens. Then what? Where are you going now? And I don't think Ecclesiastes is like all bad. I think what Ecclesiastes helps us to see is that even if the whole world is blowing up in front of us, we must still remember that God is still God. Even if Job, we'll throw Job in there too. Like Job is also a contradiction, right? Because Job was a man of God.
Yes.
Like by Proverbs, nothing should happen to Job,
Blameless.
right?
He said he was blameless. God said he was blameless.
You know, so like, but then Ecclesiastes stuff. And so like, because that's a contradiction. What happened to Job was all a contradiction. Like his children shouldn't have died.
Yeah.
His livestock shouldn't have gotten stolen. He shouldn't have, been devastated like that, because he was He's blameless. So, but what happens at the end of that?
Mm-hmm.
God reminds him, I'm still God. I'm still God. And I'm still in charge. And it's still going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's still going to be okay. And like holding on in that moment when you're like devastated and can't figure out why the world is going the way it is and why suddenly I'm getting divorced and I don't really want to. You know, like, why? Like,
I'm understanding now, though, as I take these trauma classes,
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
like, he had adversive childhood experiences because his mom was married and divorced 4 times and had boyfriends on top of that. His dad, left when he was 9. And I think he was abused. He has all the symptoms of being abused as a child. So his first
not
wife,
for him,
second
but
wife,
for
I'm his
you.
third wife. So that's another thing. Is I'm his third wife. And so, I mean, he's had a mess of a life. But, I mean, when you meet someone in Bible school and they say they want to become a pastor, you
Yeah.
know,
But I mean, not for him, but for you. Like, for you to hold on to. Like, for you, that's his story.
Yeah.
But your story wasn't that. Right?
No.
Yours, right. So why you were like Proverbs. You did everything right.
Right. I did
Right?
everything
So to
right.
to hold on to it, right? Like for you, not for him, but for you, like when we come to that, because we all do. I mean, we were just talking about this earlier. Like, before I was married to Dan, I was married to an extremely abusive man who literally tried to kill me. And like, but
Been
why?
there.
I was good.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Right.
Right? So like, why? Right? Not that I wasn't.
Because my husband had PTSD and narcissism. That's why.
But how do I help? But how do I not then? Like, and I think what happens a lot of times is we either internalize it or externalize it. If we internalize it, then it becomes our problem to fix or our fault or something. And if we externalize it, then what we do is we blame everybody that looks like that or acts like that or who is like that. Like, there's a lot of women out there that hate men because of one man, right? There's a lot of people out there that don't trust. There's a lot of young people that aren't getting married, and if you ask them why, it's because their parents had terrible marriages. Am I wrong about that, about your generation? Like, and they're not getting married because of that, right? So that's a thing. But then we project that onto God too. We project all that pain, that hurt, that distrust onto Him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so what if that all happened in my past? So what if those people were like that? So what if I was? So what if I just focus on God? What if I just focus on Him? Like, and no matter what happens, just know. Dan shared this story before church, so I can share it. When we first opened the business, do you ever get your medical things back from the doctor where it says they billed this much, the insurance company paid them this much, which is generally like pennies, and then there was this much left over, and that you may or may not owe the doctor that. Generally speaking, you don't, because there's a contract that you guys are unaware of between the insurance company and the provider that says that they can't charge you that. And so when we first opened, we billed $100,000 worth of stuff to insurance companies, and they paid us
10,000.
$10,000. We had a business, we had a building, we had staff, we had payroll taxes, we had all sorts of stuff, and we lost about $250,000. Yeah, so we were like, because that was nearly our whole life savings. And we could not stop the hemorrhaging. And it got so bad that we honestly thought we were going to sell out like everything.
Because they weren't paying, the insurance wasn't paying you? Why?
Long story, but
Healthcare laws?
because insurance companies are like this. They will argue with you. So we had to hire a full-time person to get $50, and we paid her $20 an hour, and she spent like weeks trying to get $50. By the time we were done, they probably owed us like $200. Like, it was just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The insurance companies are ridiculous. And anyways, and so like at one point, Dan was like, "Well, we're not gonna tithe. We can't tithe anymore." And I was like, "Oh no, that can't happen." Like we had to really like sit and trust. I'm like, "No, we can't. We've got to trust God. We've got to trust God. We've got to trust God." He shared the story, and so we did, and God brought it all back.
How did he bring it all back?
We moved the business. We moved the company in here.
Oh.
And we
no overhead.
Moved to cash.
Moved to cash.
Mm-hmm. And so it was still overhead, but not as much. And so it really, it was what originally, when we first started praying, originally we both heard that we should have it in house, and then we both decided that we knew better. Like we didn't trust what we were hearing from God to do it, and so we thought we would do our own thing. We're doing our own thing. One of these kids is doing their own thing. So that was us. We're doing our own
we
thing.
have all done that. I mean, let's be honest.
So originally, you felt like the Lord was saying to have it in house, but you were like, "But most people have their own office." And so I feel like I should have my own office.
No, what I was thinking was, I'm going to be working with people that I don't want probably in my house.
Oh, that's what it was.
So it was that. And I still had 2 kids in school, I think, or just Joe was still in school. So it was just really like, you gotta have like, as all of you don't want to trust me when everything's going good, but you're gonna have to trust me. And there's been other things that have happened. That was just something recent. Well, not recently, but within the recent decade or so. And so, can we trust him? Can we trust him? Really, really trust him. Like, it's gonna be okay. And just the things that God has brought me through. You would think at this point in my career as a human being, I'd be like, don't, like, our daughter's a walking miracle, literally a walking miracle. And so I can't even, like, most people be like, "Oh, well, you should have just, gosh, surely you're walking with God and believing everything." No. Let me tell you about all the other mistakes I've made, and all the other times I haven't trusted, and all the other times that, each time that happens, like, we have to go back and say, why don't I trust? Why didn't I trust him to begin with? And really, really ask ourselves those questions. What don't we trust him with? Because there's always something. I would like all of us to be saints, but that's not reality. So there's always something, and even if we don't know it, like I've shared this with our other home when we were doing the last stream group. It was like 2 years ago. I was a smarty pants, and I was like reading about David, and I asked God, "Won't you search my heart? Because I know you're not gonna find anything. Tell me what's wrong, because I'm so perfect." And wow, what he found was amazing. And so I spent the whole year struggling with my own anger. And I was like, "No, God, I hadn't really buried that deep, and if we could not bring up my anger, that would be fantastic." I had to deal with that for a whole year. I had to deal with that, right? And so just walking in our dignity, walking in the strength that he gives us, not that we take, not that we develop. Because all of that dignity, that strength, that's all fake. The dignity that he gives us, and he tells us we're his daughters. We are princesses in the kingdom of God. Like, we are warriors in the kingdom of God. We have strength. We are the protectors of the home, the heart, the central part, right? That, can we walk in any more dignity and strength than that, to know that we are the heart. We were created to nurture. I share this a lot, but men don't understand love, and women don't understand respect. Don't argue with me yet. So if you were to say to a woman when she walked in the door from work, When I was walking in, he would say, "Oh my gosh, you did the best job folding laundry today, and the vacuuming. What could be better than this vacuuming?" And the way you raise those children, I'll just tell you, I've never seen anybody disciplined like that at all. And this house is amazing. Could you iron some more of my clothes? Because you are the best iron. You probably kill them. Probably like, "Where's my iron?" At the side of your head. That's where it's going to be in 2 seconds. And if a guy was to walk into the house and you go, "Honey, I love you. I just love you. I love you so much. I just love you," you'd be like, "I know what that word means, but I have no idea what you're saying to me right now." Whereas if a man walks into the house and you say to him, "Honey, you are such a great provider and such a good husband and you're a good father," he'd hear, "I love you, I love you, I love you." And if you say to a woman, "You are my sunshine, you are my angel, I love you so much," we hear, "You're a good mom, you're a good wife." He didn't say any of that. Not really. But that's what we hear. Because we're different, because we're the heart. And the man is a protector. And so when we really walk in, we're the heart. You have to cherish your heart, right? I mean, think of all the things, all the metaphors we have in our vernacular about, and in poetry, and in art, and in music about the heart, and how fragile it is, and how we have to care for it. I mean, even just in reality, you cannot live without your heart, right? Not for long, right? So like, your heart is so precious. It beats without even thinking about it. It takes care of everything. It moves our blood around. It, sometimes, I don't know about you guys, I don't know if you've ever been hurt like this before, but you can literally feel your heart hurt. Like it's sank in your chest and it's heavy, right? Like, we're the heart. And we need to walk in that, like who we really are. And understand that we can bring joy to people. I don't know about you ladies, but I will tell you, have you ever seen anybody? Maybe it's because I'm an encourager, but sometimes I'll see somebody and I'll be like, I don't know, suddenly I know that they need to be encouraged. And it just flows out of my tongue with minimal effort, right? I don't mind encouraging, praying with them about that's evangelism, it's different. But just telling them how beautiful they are and how wonderful they are. I truly, if I've ever given you a compliment and told you that I think that you're wonderful and amazing, I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. Like, I don't just like throw those things out like they're meaningless. Like, whatever I say to somebody, I truly mean. Because I truly see people, like, and everybody has a different gift. You'll starve to death if you are coming to my house for, like, after the apocalypse. We will have no extra food. But I will make you feel good. I will be an encourager. I will not be out there hunting. My daughter will be. I'm not sleeping on the ground either. Like, that's not who I am. I'm not, can I get dirty? Yes. Will I? Probably not, unless I have to. Like, I would much rather just, like, love on people all day and serve people all day. That's really what I'd much rather do. And like, knowing who we are and walking in that fullness of who we are, who God calls us to be. Not that we all have to be the same, but we all have gifts. And we gotta honor those. We gotta honor those gifts that He gives us. Heike, did you want to add anything?
I think too, when you were talking to the heart, what came to mind is, I don't know where it says it, but it says whatever's in your heart comes out of your mouth. Right? So if you ever listen to people talk, and Howie says it all the time, you know what their condition of their heart is because of the way they talk. So and that means that you have to feed your heart right.
Yeah.
Not just in the physical part by keeping it healthy, but also in the mind and the spiritual sense. I mean, I've noticed that, if I notice it on people, if I would be sitting, which I don't, on my phone all day, I would be a depressed person. I wouldn't, it's just like, it's not me. I just, but if you read the Bible or you're outside and you listen to music, it's just different because you feed your heart different. And it's just, I think that's what it is. For me, I always try to see, because I'm married empathetic too. I can read people pretty good. Even if they come in with a smile, I can say there's something in their heart. That's just me. But it's just, I've learned in my life, everybody has their life, has been through so many experiencing things different, because I come from a different culture, so I can see different cultures very easily, and I can understand why this person acts this way and this person acts this way. It is not because of me, it's just because the way they experience life themselves. So therefore, they can maybe hurt you or do things to you, but for me, everything is spiritual, because that's what I have experienced in my life. Everything is spiritual, and don't attack the person. And I think that is where the strength and dignity comes from, especially the strength, because if somebody is telling you something and it hurts you, and that's true, it will hurt you, but where is it coming from? And if a person doesn't feed their heart right, that's where it's coming from. It's a spiritual thing. One time I heard, the minute a Christian woman gets pregnant is where the battle begins. Because she's creating life, and there's two sides fighting for that life, and the same is with a Christian marriage. It's under attack because it's under attack.
Yeah, I never thought about it in the pregnancy, but I have thought about it in the marriage. You just gave me a new thought.
And I think because I thought of it, because I always, when I did prenatal massages, I always prayed for the child, because if I knew they were a Christian, I think,
I think that's true.
It starts.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And we are in a battle, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
But the way, it's just, always think my life story is always thinking it's a situation, because when we owned the business for 11 years, it was all God-based, but the attacks were tremendous on that business, spiritually speaking. Whatever the devil could throw on us, he did. But it was God there.
Yeah.
And I had the verse on my, right? That verse.
Right.
And it's just, and that's just it. It's just, it's not an easy life. It's not. But if you walk in the way of the Lord and you trust Him, and you have, you look at Him, and I think God puts you in this situation. He always has me, where He says, okay, this is the fork in the road. You make your decision. I know it's not an easy one, but are you going to follow me despite what's happening? Or are you going to say, this is too much, I'm going to go, you're going the other way.
Right.
And you will figure that out in life. There are those situations. The first one for me was when Gary was deployed to Korea. We were separated. We both became Christians. He came back in May, and he left in July for Cuba after a year in Korea. And I said to the Lord, I did what you wanted me to do. I became a Christian. Why are you doing that to me? And then this is where my journey began. And he said, well, are you really following me because of what I do for you? Or are you following me because you love me?
Right.
Right. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Seek His face or seek His hand. Right.
Yeah.
And that's how my life always been, with every situation in my life. What is your motive, Micah? Is it love? Or is it because you want something?
And that was the exact story for Job, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
That was exactly what the adversary said.
Yes.
Was if you took everything away from him, would he still love you?
Yes.
So there is some danger in God giving us everything.
Yes.
Because then do we really love Him? Sometimes we get to make the choice in the road.
Yes.
Which one, right? And so, and our physical, and this is not just philosophical. It's also scientifical. But our physical, emotional, and spiritual being are all combined with one.
Mm-hmm.
They're all together, And the Proverbs 31 woman is diligent in caring for herself so that she can care for others. When I hear a woman say, I come last, right? I'm like, no. If you're on an airplane, there's a reason why they tell the mothers, put your mask on first and then help your babies.
That's right.
And I can't tell you how many times I've been in a counseling session and a woman will bring up this example out of the blue and she'll say, I would put it on my children first. And I'd be like, hey, you'd all be dead.
Yes.
Because that kid is going to fight you because nobody wants the mask on their face and they're little and they don't understand. You're going to have to explain to them, oh, by the way, you passed out 20 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And they're dead.
Yeah.
So, what can I tell you? Like, no, you have to take care of yourself. Well, I go
also,
with
like monkey see, monkey do.
yeah, right. And and you have to be in a healthy place. Like,
Yes.
if you're wore out, if you're tired, I don't know about you, but if I'm wore out and I'm tired, so I don't get hangry, which is sleepy, which is hungry, angry. I get slangry, which is sleepy, angry. Like if I'm sleepy, I am not a nice person. If I'm hungry, I don't really get hungry, but that's not a problem for me. But if I'm sleepy, don't talk to me, because I'm like, because I can't think. Like I'm too tired to think, right? So like, if I'm worn down, I'm probably gonna be less patient. I'm gonna have a much faster reaction to you. I'm not going to be able to, like, you do something, I'm not going to be able to censor myself and be like, should I kill them now? like you just, like when you're worn out, you don't have that same level of like wherefall. And then the opposite is true too. You could also be like, oh, let's forget it, man. I'm just like, you know, like, I don't know, Heike, you probably agree. It's like, how many times have you been tired and the kids do something, you're like, I gotta go deal with that. I'm too tired to deal with that right now.
Whatever.
But if I don't deal with it, I'm gonna set a precedence. And so I've got to deal with it. If you make me deal with something when I'm tired, you might not get as nice response as you would hope. So
Well, and the attacks are worse than too.
absolutely.
The spiritual attacks. If you're not on your game, you
And-
see it in a whole different light.
And Satan seems to do
Yes,
that. Like
he does.
like, you know, he goes chip, chip,
Yeah.
chip, chip, chip. And then when you're just hanging on at the end of your rope, I can't tell you how many times when I was younger, my car would like suddenly need to go into the shop. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I'm dead on the side of the road. Like,
Yep.
dude, I just worked like 70 hours this week just to pay the rent, and now, like, you know, like what else could happen today?
Yeah.
Right? So it just seems that way, right? You gotta not lose your mind over it. So it's like
basically starts whenever you are born, and then it
Yeah.
worsens whenever you become a Christian, and then
Yes.
it worsens whenever you get married,
Yeah.
right.
and then worsens when you get pregnant,
Facts.
and then it starts all over again.
Facts.
Yes.
And then that whole time you can have joy.
Yes.
And then that whole, even though that's all true, and that whole time you can still have hope and
Yes.
faith. And if you've ever been around somebody that has no hope or no faith, you know the difference.
Yes.
Right? And so like how it's all about, I gotta still trust, even when my kids all died because the house fell on them. I lost all my livestock, and my wife, who I probably wish might actually get hit by a tree, is telling me to curse God and die. like not helpful, honey. And my friends. Can anybody talk about my three besties that came to help me and are finding everything wrong with me?
Story joke. Yes.
Right? You know, like in those moments,
Yes.
can we just hold on and hold on and hold on?
Just hold the line.
And resist hearing what society is telling us, like you're living in a fairy tale. That's just like, because that's what society will tell you. Oh, it's not working, as if believing in God was some magical potion. You know, like, no, it's about faith. It's about relationship. It's about love.
Yes.
And it's about knowing who I am. You know, let me ask you something. Think back to like this 16, maybe the 1400s, when their kings were over, you know, and things were happening, maybe even earlier than that, over in Europe and over in Rome and stuff like. even if the king was losing the battle, right? Was he not still a king? Were his children not still a threat? Did they still not try and get his children, all of them, the females and the males, did they still not try and hide the children from the enemy? Because they were still princes and princesses and still carried the royal line. Even when they came crashing through the gates, they were still royalty. And they would get hidden, and the heirs would rise up. And that's what happened. And that's who we are. Like, even if the gates are being stormed, we are still princesses and queens. We are still royalty. Just because they have come through the gate does not diminish who I am. Like, that's what we have to remember. That's who we are. And walk in it. I never, ever, not that I've ever met a queen, but I've never seen a queen on TV ever be like, never. That queen gets out of that car and she stands. And even if somebody says something to her, she waves. Right?
I got that. You have to rotate the wrist.
Like, doesn't, right? Yeah, very good, very good. We've all, there we go.
We got it.
Like that's who, it doesn't matter what the crowd's yelling at her, she still stands. She still stands. And even if there's a problem, there are some, I love to watch documentaries on early Europe history because there were some really rough things that happened. But if you look, there are some, I'm trying to think of the one show that I saw that was awesome. Even some of the czar's wives and some of the queens that came up, like, even when some of the countries and the kings were like bowing down, a lot of times the queen would, in all her dignity, feed the helpless and the homeless. She would go out and encourage the people, not the king. Because, and when the queen was pregnant, oh, this was a big deal. Like, the whole town was waiting in anticipation of the birth. Like, that's who we are. And even if we're not having children, like, the ideas that we birth forth, the mentoring relationships that we birth forth through those that we mentor that are younger than us, like all of heaven is sitting in anticipation, waiting for the birth of that, whatever that is. Like, that's who we are.
And you're not alone in your walk. When you are married to the godly man, he is there to give you the covering also.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes.
So that's why it says, I believe, be equally yoked to the person you married. But it's not, I mean, we've been through a lot. The older person, you are still having it ahead of us, but we're just saying it all works out. It's gonna be all right.
Sometimes I have to remind myself that. I realize sometimes I'll be like, it is all gonna be okay. You know what? It's all gonna be, I don't know. It's gonna be okay. I don't know. It just is. I don't know how, but it is. I've given up trying to figure out how. I'm just gonna follow the path.
Yeah.
That's all I can do. Like, I'm not gonna do anything else. There are other things that I probably could do that I'm not gonna do because those would be just spitting into the wind right now. Like, I just kind of measuring that out. So how do we take care of ourselves? And that's gonna be really our focus for this month, is how do we take care of ourselves emotionally, physically? Like, how do we do that? So to take care of our bodies, to take care of, how do we set boundaries, emotional boundaries with other people, and protect our peace? There's one thing I've learned over these years of my life is, like, protecting your peace is like something you should actually fight for. Like, in a really strong and determined way. If the people in your life do not bring you peace, and I'm not talking about little things, I'm talking about people that are chaotic all the time. Like, I don't know how many of you have met these people, but I meet these people sometimes. Like, if there's chaos in somebody's life, I will not be friends with them. I can't be. My peace is far too important. I cannot be part of their chaos, because you know why? I'm not here to fix them.
Yep.
Like,
you also have to, like, plant the seed.
Right? But I can't be in their life. Like, I can be here, and they can come and we can talk and that's great, but I can't be there with them. I can't go into I will not go into the chaos with them. They have to come out of the chaos. You can't play on that playground. That's an awful place to be. I've done it a gazillion times. Part of me is a rescuer. Don't tell anybody that. Because there's been plenty of times where I rescue people. Like, why did you do that? It's not healthy to rescue people, by the way. It's not your job and it's not healthy. So, and how can we nurture our faith? How can we search for the, maybe search for the areas where we don't trust God? To have Him reveal them to us, like, where don't we trust you? Where is it that I don't trust you? Can I just caution you when you do that, though? He's going to answer you.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you guys Dan can tell you. When I prayed the prayer of show me what's in my heart that doesn't need to be there, and he came up with my anger that I thought was in like a lockbox with like chains around it, drugged down to the bottom of the ocean. Like when he drugged that up, I was like, we're not opening, we're opening that, but please don't. Don't open that box. Like that's the worst box ever. Please don't open my anger box. And but you know what? It had to happen because I kept hearing that you can't take that word with you where you're going.
Yeah, I was just saying about how important it is, to forgive those that hurt us, and I think the reason why a lot of us are angry is because other people hurt us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
and it's just if you look at it from God's perspective, He's like, yeah, I know, I was upset at everybody too. I mean,
Yeah.
I created man, woman, and then Cain killed Abel, and then oh my gosh, I mean, I'm just like, really? I mean, every single thought in your heart is evil. Okay, all right, I've had enough. The only good people are Noah and his wife and his family. Okay, you build an ark. Okay, I'm going to wipe them all out. Boom. Flood. He wiped them all out.
Right.
He's like.
And then Ham showed up, right?
You
Hey,
know,
what are you doing right now, dude? Your dad's
really-
cut it out.
I just really cannot continue to do this. Because then there'll be no more people
Right.
that I created. And this just doesn't look good. So I'm going to put a rainbow in the sky. And I'm going to promise that I'm never going to do this again. And then he's like, but then we have all these evil people that are hurting my righteous ones. And so that's why it happened. That's why we get hurt. Because he decided not to wipe everybody out again.
But the story is, because I think when the righteous get hurt, you become more like him every day because you have to keep forgiving them and keep forgiving them.
Keep forgiving. Because Jesus was hurt.
Yes, and he had to forgive. And so you go from glory to glory. There's a purpose for it.
Yeah, you have to just keep forgiving and keep
trusting God.
He's gonna provide, and He's gonna So give it all to Him.
Absolutely. So I was Dan just texted me. Dan is going to be bringing wood. He's unloading wood. He's fixing something for me. So our cabinet's in there. So when we built the house, they have these cabinets and they're really tall. Like the bottom ones are tall, right? But they put one sliding shelf in there. So how much can fit on one sliding shelf when you've got like this much more space above it? I'm like, can you just put another shelf in there? So that's what he's gonna do today. I don't know why I never asked him before, but whatever. And I didn't realize what time it was, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I'm gonna have to pay close attention to the time, even though this has the time on it too. I don't know. It doesn't work.
I don't know what time.
But
Last time we
so-
went to like 8.
yeah.
Well, we talked a lot afterward.
And I'm reflecting on the idea that we just need to take care of ourselves and show and make sure that we're showing the world our worth, like the queen when she gets out of the carriage, or the princess, because that's who we are. That's who we are. We are not a pauper. I know what I was thinking. What I was preparing for today was, the beggar at the gate who when Jesus was coming, and it said he threw off his cloak. Back when there were beggars at the gate, they got a special cloak to wear. that identified them as beggars. And when he got healed from his blindness, he threw his cloak off because he no longer needed to identify with that. And I was thinking, that's what we need to do. We need to throw that cloak off because we are not beggars. And we should not be identifying ourselves with that. We don't need to walk around with our heads down.
No.
We need to stand up strong because we got a tiara on and it cannot fall off. So I just
Amen.
challenge all of you to walk around for the next month like you got a tiara on. Be shifting too fast. Don't be getting mad at anybody. Your tiara might slide off to the side. And be like, I got a tiara. I'm gonna think about that. I gotta be slow when I turn now. Right? So if I flip my head around, my tiara might fall off, and then somebody will have to die, or whatever. I mean, you have to go. So, and we stand firm in our strength and dignity that God has given us, like really, like both feet in the ground, you know, because we as sisters in Christ should be like the aspens, you know, an aspen. This is amazing to me. An aspen grove. When you look at an aspen grove, you're actually looking at one tree. All the trees in an aspen grove have the same DNA. It's amazing to me. You have to look at the root balls of the tree to figure out which was the original tree, but all of them are the same tree with the same DNA. They're just different ages, which is fascinating to me.
The children of the, yeah.
Kind of, but they have the same DNA. It's awesome. I think it's so cool. Like
Children
there's only trees
trees.
that do that. But that's how we should be as sisters. When people look at us, they should see God's children. We all have the same DNA from God, and we should be all like encouraging each other in our growth with each other, right? No matter what our age is, when they see us, we should all look the same to them. All of us should be looking the same as beautiful daughters, and really wearing that. I'm gonna wear the heck out of my tiara. I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty sure I was born to wear a tiara. I think. So, so does anybody want to close us in prayer or have any last thoughts? We'll go right over there.
Yeah.
It's okay. We'll take an
Yeah.
intermission.
You know, I was going to tell you something really.
Appointment? Oh, not appointment. One of my
I know.
appointments.
What helped me with dignity is that, and this probably only applies to me, but I like to verbalize it when I have an opportunity. But you know, when in the Old Testament, there are so many times where the Israelites, you know, disobeyed God and served other idols, and you know, he was so mad, you know, at them that they turned their hearts away from him, served other idols from other nations, and so he got so mad that he divorced Israel. And so the Lord comforted me by saying, you know, I'm divorced.
You know, Susan, you say something sometimes that I've never thought of that really make me like go, I never thought. That's awesome. I like that.
And I was like, wait a minute though, you're married to the church though. And he says, yeah, I'm married to the church, but I mean, you know, I also divorced Israel. So, but why? Because they were unfaithful, you know. I mean, it was a heartbreaking decision, you know. And then he allowed them to be captured and taken off to Babylon, you know. So,
right?
Anyway, it just comforted me. And after that, man, I had no more shame. I'm like, you know, God was divorced. You know, I have no shame. I'm like him. You know.
I like it. What about the 15th of March?
Yeah.
Does that work?
That's the next time.
Yeah. Does that
Okay.
work for you?
I'll just have to make it work. I might switch my shifts again.
15th of March.
15th, yeah.
Okay.
Because the other ones I have clients. And then we have the conference on the 29th.
The 29th is the women's conference.
28th and 29th, yes.
I am
And
so.
by the way, you remember we were praying for my grandson?
Mm.
We thought that he had you know, with his iron was low, and we're worried about his blood. And actually, I remember you praying for him.
What's his name?
D.
D?
D. Yeah, we were. It was
D-E-A-N?
D. And we were praying at that time. It was when we went to the Holy Spirit thing, and he's it's just it wasn't. We were thinking it might have been leukemia, but it wasn't. It was just an iron deficiency, and he's all good to go. So just want to let you know.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
This came to mind, so it must have been.
Thank you.
March 15th,
March 15th.
9th.
9:30.
March 15th is the next one.
Yeah.